Hello. In today's video, we're going to be going over some more economy stuff for Windwalker, just what's been going on, I think since the last week or so since my last video. I used this sheet that I'd had for an interview, just modified it to fit our game currently. So what you see here is just a breakdown of the resources that a typical player has, or that a player can have in Windwalker. Time being the most valuable thing, gold being the soft currency that players can spend, and then acquire, diamonds being um, sort of the premium hard currency that you can get for money, being the real world money you spend, and then the last one being the items that the player will acquire as they play and progress through the game. So over here, we can see kind of what the breakdown is, what types of inputs these actions are getting, and then what's being outputted from these systems. And also, this is kind of a simplification of our systems, being that it's a sort of a simple chart to follow. So here we'll just go over each one. Killing monsters inputs time for the player, and this is considered a sink. Um, Actually, no, this should actually be a tap because we're creating golden items. So this is something I should just quickly change here, just like that. Yeah, so we're killing monsters. We're creating something from time, which is golden items. And then here, buying premium chests from the NPC, we're spending diamonds, which we're getting from here, money. It's the only way we can acquire these diamonds. And then we're getting items. Players can purchase items from the NPCs with diamonds as a form of paying for power level. And really quickly, it's important to note that this is a single player game. We had plans for PvP, but it looks like we're not going to include it. And if we were to, then things would change. But currently, the way the economy is set up is in such a way where we don't have to account for trading to occur or people amassing so much money and being able to provide like a negative experience for other players because it's a singular player economy. um, we have we don't have as many potential pitfalls that you would run into in like a more MMO RPG scale of game or a game that's PvP heavy. um, so that's kind of a reason why being able to pay for power is not a bad design choice, at least in my opinion, for this type of game. So moving on, buying, selling items from the NPC. This is considered a sink, and I'll get into why. But essentially, you're paying gold or you're selling items. So you're paying gold to buy items that the NPC sells, and these items can be equipable items or pets currently. And then I say here that when you're buying something from the NPC, you're charged a tax. So just a sort of multiplier to make you essentially pay more than what the item is actually worth. And this creates a sort of like deflationary effect where the there's money leaving the economy, just going into the NPC and essentially fizzling out, which makes the economy sort of not go towards that hyperinflation that you would see in a lot of these like MMO style games or RPG games. And also related is when you're selling items, you're selling them at a fraction of what they're worth because we still want to have that sort of deflationary effect. And this is essentially what the game economy designer's job is to do, is to balance these taps and sinks. Um, I hear this I hear this example brought up many times where the analogy is you're trying to like fill up this bathtub and the taps are like the water going into the bathtub, and then the sink is the rate of which the water is leaving the bathtub. And the economy designer's job is to keep that bathtub full enough to be able to take a bath and things like that, but not too full where you can't bathe in it or like the water is flowing out, or too low where there's not enough water to take a bath. And then when you add additional systems to your economy, um, you have to be careful about um, like what you're adjusting and how you're adjusting it, because in any game, essentially every system that's in the game has some sort of exchange in it, which implies a form of change in the economy. So like the item system, we have the monster system, and like the pets, and these things all tie into that singular economy. So the last thing is purchasing diamonds. You spend money, you get diamonds. Pretty simple here. Um, yeah, so I guess that was it for this figure. Um, let's see. Right, so another thing I was able to do was to so I was able to set essentially how much something would be worth if they were to be sold to the NPC. So given that the player's level is 5, any piece of equipment that they would sell here, this is actually wrong. This would be multiplied by this amulet value multiplier. Right, so any weapon or armor will be sold for this price at level 5, and then we can see, what was it? It was 16, almost 17. Let's say this was like 56. We can see that the price changes, and it's the same for um, these over here as well. So this is what the player's selling and what the price would be. And then this is what the NPC is selling. Um, yeah, so the pets are quite pricey. These all factor in the tax when you're buying something. And then these also factor in the, I forget what I called it. I think it's over here somewhere. Yeah, item selling deflationary tax. That's the best term I could come up with. But essentially, that when you sell something to an NPC, it's sold for a fraction of that cost. And currently, that's kind of an arbitrary number, but it's just a fourth of what the value would be. So I made some changes here as well. I added an amulet value multiplier. Again, another arbitrary number. Um, And I did this because before, the amulet just had, it was kind of like a wild card item that you could have, where it just has like a random stat, and then dependent on the rarity, it will have additional random stats. But I wanted to create a sort of differentiation for the amulet, so I added an additional stat. So out of every item, the amulet can have a max of 5 stats, where every other item at the highest rarity, the max stats it could have is 4 different stats, or a combination of like it'll get the same stat multiple times, but essentially it'll roll a stat 4 times, and then the amulet will be a 5th time. So because of that differentiation, um, and also the fact that the amulet is only found after level 30. I wanted to, I guess, differentiate it in terms of value compared to the other items. And again, like I said, it's an arbitrary number that can be changed. Um, but for now, I just set it to 1.5. But another thing that we could theoretically do is we can factor in that difference in power level and then just adjust the value, um, adjust the value there. So like if 4 stats on an item was worth, let's say like 80 80 gold, so it would be 20 gold per stat. Um, introducing a fifth stat would make that item worth 20 more, which is 100. But currently, this is the approach I wanted to go with, and we'll see kind of after doing some sort of testing, we'll see if the feeling is kind of right, and see how um, we can mock like this sort of like player economy. And that's one thing that now that I'm thinking about it, I want to do is to be able to, I guess, simulate a player's progression from levels 1 through 100. How many monsters are they gonna kill? How often are they going to be purchasing things? What are they purchasing? What are they selling? Things like that. But currently, we need to create all these systems first in order to be able to do that. Um, so yeah, I got rid of some of these things that weren't making sense. Like before, I had an item rarity multiplier that essentially, based on the item's rarity, I would change the price at the NPC or from the NPC. So like an item with rarity level 0 would just be worth face value, and then every tier above that would have an additional multiplier. But instead of that, I figured we're already using the item's power level to determine the cost. So we're just using that. And then additional multipliers like the amulet multiplier, we have taxes, and then pets are just worth more. Um, yeah, these are arbitrary numbers, but they're they're using some arbitrary elements, but also some that are more in line with the exact, I guess, like power level. So let's see. Um, Another thing that I did today was actually generate our different types of pets. Oh, conveniently right here. Um, Different levels. We have 3 at each level for each pet, different stats as we can see here. Let's see. And then the different skills that these pets have. Here we can see the skills. Some don't have any, which is fine. And yeah, let's see. Skill graphs, no. All right, so I established this over here. So we have over here, we've seen this before. Which items are found at which levels, at what rarities. And then we have like the totals, the file sizes, whatever. So currently we have like 127,000 unique items, which is really exciting for me. Um, but another thing that we need to determine is the chances of getting these rarities at these levels. Um, so what that means is when you're killing a monster and you're so I imagine our system would look something like you kill the monster. Um, our system, I already have how we're going to get gold or how much gold you're going to get from that monster decided. But then you also need to decide, oh, if this monster were to drop an item, what is the rarity of that item? So I tried to determine that here again with some arbitrary numbers. So levels 1 through 10, if you were to get an item, there's a 75% chance that it'd be a common, 25 uncommon, and then so on and so forth. Um, Another thing I did in item generation was just add more items. Gary found a way to generate items much quicker than we were previously. It was literally just like 2 lines of code, um, really quick side note, in Unity, when you're doing asset creation, what you want to do is call this function asset database.start asset editing, and then it kind of, you can read that there. And then once you're done creating your assets, you stop asset editing, and it doesn't, I believe it removes the need for compiling every time you add a new item, which cut our time from, I think, like 12 to 13 hours to just like 6 minutes, 5 minutes, or something like that. So keep that in mind. Um, yeah, so different rarity chances. And then one thing I glossed over was over here. So I need to reorganize this stuff. I've begun to do that a little bit, but some of these things I could probably just take out. And then there's another issue we have here, where at lower levels, these chests are worth a lot more because these experience calculations aren't quite right at the lower levels. You can see here the premium chest tier 4 is almost 30k, and then as you go up, it decreases in price, and then eventually, I think from like 15 to 16, it begins to go up. But that's something I have to look into. But I was going to mention, we have here how much gold the monster drops at this level, and then also the total value in terms of gold that the monster would give at that level. And then that's based on this, or is it? Right, so all monsters have a chance of dropping the following at the same rate. So 5% chance of dropping a weapon or armor at the player's level, 3% chance to drop an amulet at levels 30 plus, armor chest, weapon chest 2%, treasure chest 2%. So with all that factored in over here, and those values over here, essentially we're just summing them up over here, and then the gold calculation is done separately. And then when we sum those up, this is how much value you get from killing a level 17 monster. And that's really important to note because I can map out the rate in which they can um, buy things from the NPC shop. So here we have 135 gold that the player will get on average after killing a monster. And then here we can see that this armor piece that they would want to buy is 740 gold. So really quickly, we can just do 740 gold divided by, I think it was it 135? 135. They need to kill about 6 monsters to be able to purchase a armor piece. And then a chest would be a little different, and I can be like, oh, actually, that doesn't seem like it's high enough. So I'm like, okay, um, let's lower this value a little bit, or I can increase it if I think that's not fast enough, and things like that. So it's really helpful to have this sort of information um, to determine that sense of like pace and progression. But I was thinking of this stuff. I'm not quite too sure on yet. Um, just arbitrary numbers. I'm not sure how I'm going to value these win tokens or these dollar valuations, but just kind of to get a sense of how we might monetize the game, and to exercise my like thinking as a prospective game economy designer at a bigger company. But yeah, I think that's it. So